So, first question, how many of you have ever done a pitch before? Okay, good, couple people. So, oh good, couple more people. What was it like? How did you do? Did you feel comfortable? Was it scary? Did you make mistakes? Did you do really great? What did you think about it?
It was fun.
It was fun? What was fun about it?
I don't know. Like I thought I would like go up really nervous and everything. Once I started talking to everybody, I just like flowed with it really well.
Good. So, how long was your pitch?
I think it was like 50 seconds, I believe.
50 seconds? Okay, good. Who else? What'd you think of it? I've seen you two guys pitch before.
I thought it was I was kind of nervous.
Yeah.
I was nervous as hell, yeah.
Most people are, right? It's the biggest fear. Public speaking, #1 fear of most people, right?
There's literally like a business mentor at high school and our football team had a fundraiser to sell these gold cards. And they have like deals to local restaurants around. So like I pitched the gist of the gold card, what it was for,
Great.
30 seconds to a minute to branding people around the community. So, the 1 year I actually did real well. I sold over 50 of them.
Nice. Did you get some sort of prize?
For every 20 we sold, they gave us $50 a key. So.
Cash is a good motivator,
Yeah.
as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. So, I'm going to get into the presentation in a minute. I want to see where everybody's at with this whole topic. What is the purpose of a pitch? Why are we doing this? What's the purpose of it?
To get funding and
Get funding,
advance your idea.
advance your idea. What else? That's it? Advance your idea, get
Solve
funding.
someone's problem.
Solve someone's problem.
Develop their interest in your idea. Develop
Yeah.
somebody else's.
Maybe get
Great.
clients.
Your clients, absolutely. So all of those are correct, right? But when you start to put your pitch deck together, or you're starting to present your pitch, you need to know a couple of things going into it. Who's your audience, right? Are you talking about investors? Are you talking about potential customers? Are you talking about potential partnerships? Is it just an informational pitch? So who are you pitching to? What's the purpose of it? Because most of the times you're going to have anywhere between 30 seconds to 5 minutes. 5 minutes is generally the longest pitch in a traditional pitch that you'll have. So 30 seconds to 5 minutes to share as much information as you can, but get the other person interested. So things that you definitely want to avoid, if it's a pitch to an investor, I'll get into the more specifics of it in a minute, but if it's a pitch to an investor, you want to speak their language. Make them interested in what you have. Solve their problem, give them a reason to invest in you, give them a reason to want to do whatever it is you're asking them to do. So when you start to present your information, you really want to put yourself in their place. What problem do they have? What do they want to get out of this? Why should they listen to you? Everybody's familiar with elevator pitches, right? You know, an elevator pitches. It is very specifically in an elevator with an investor or a potential partner, and having literally 30 seconds to tell them what you want them to know and get them to want to hear more. And so choosing your language and your approach to that is really an art. And I'll say that these skills that you develop around pitching will serve you no matter what you do in life. You may decide, you know what, I never in my life want to be an entrepreneur. I don't have an idea for anything. I don't care about pitching, but you're going to want to get a job. You're going to want to negotiate contracts. You're going to want to get a raise. You're always going to want something for yourself. And so the skills in pitching are across the board. They're going to come in handy no matter what you do in life. And I've seen it over and over and over again, that people are much more successful when they know how to get people on their side. And so I'll say one book. If you never read any books on this, I mean, you can read. There's a million innovation books, entrepreneur books, and there's a ton of them out there. Best one, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Anyone ever read it? Dale Carnegie? Invest. It's like from 1937. Principles still apply. And it's all about seeing the problem from the customer or the investor side and pitching it to them to make them want to be with you. They want to buy from you. They want to be an investor. They want to be a partner because you are seeing things from their position, not standing up here saying, let me tell you how great my product is. Right? Let me tell you how great I am. how would you guys like it if I stood here for 5 minutes and told you how great I was? No, you'd all be like, no, see ya. Okay. And so it's the same thing with a pitch. You want to make that person want to be with you and want to learn more about it. So, how do we do that? Let me see. I'll click in here. Yes. Everybody loves a story, right? So everybody loves a story. When we coach students in the launch lab on how to pitch, we always have that hook in the beginning. Tell them your story. Who doesn't love a good story? But make it quick. Be able to tell them in a couple of seconds. You know, when we coach students, we usually tell them, you know, do something that's going to attract attention. So tell your story in a way that sing a song, say something outrageous, but bring it back to your product. We've had students sing songs in the beginning of their pitch. One of our Launch Lab staff, who was a student in the businessman competition, spent the first a minute and a half of his pitch pouring water into a container and never said a word. Right? We've had people sing, we've had people do all kinds of stuff. But it gets attention and it starts to tell the story. And your story can be told without words too, it can be visuals. But everybody loves a good story. And so bringing them in, telling the story. Be very specific about the problem. There's a big difference between a research presentation and a pitch. Okay? If you start talking about, let me tell you about my research. Let me tell you about all of these things that I have found. I mean, if I started doing that to you, you know, think about it. You're the investor, you're the customer, you're the whoever. If I start telling you, let me stand here and tell you all these things that I found, all of my research, you're gonna be like, so what? How does that apply to me? What do you want me to do? How does that relate to me? Your research, fantastic, that's great. So what? So many times we hear people pitch, and I'm not talking about students, because I work with people in the communities, training them on pitching, and so many times they'll stand and they'll do a 5-minute pitch, and at the end of it, the audience is sitting there going, so what? What do you want me to do about it? And so, state the problem and describe who's having the problem. And you can even start your pitch out with, hey, have you ever had a problem of this? You know, I'll share Keith's story. Keith Eisler. Some of you probably know Keith, who works over in the Maker Lab. Well, he's one of our staff, and he won the businessman competition last year. 2 years ago, maybe. 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And and I can talk about his product now because he's got his provisional patent on it, so it's protected, it's okay. But in general terms, his product is, it's a valve that holds water in the shower, so that when you're not wasting all that water that's going down the drain, you know, while you're waiting for it to heat up. It holds the water, it releases the water when it reaches this designated temperature. So we can all relate to that, right? I mean, for those of us who shower, we can say, like, his pitch is, have you ever had the problem where you're running water down the drain and until it reaches its desired temperature, you're wasting all this water? Wouldn't you like to have a solution to that problem so you're not wasting water? Well, yeah, we can all relate to that. That's an easy story. He started it off with, I was taking a shower and I was just standing there looking at all this water running down the drain, and I kept thinking to myself, this is a complete waste of water. There's got to be a way to not waste this water. What can I do? And that story caught everyone's attention because everybody takes showers, at least I hope at some point. We all have probably experienced that where we're waiting for the water, and we're watching all this wasted water go down the drain. Easy story, easy problem, solution we can all relate to. And investors eat it up. They love it. Yeah, you're wasting water. Who doesn't want to save water? Everybody wants to save water. You can make that story so dramatic, right? Wouldn't you want to save the planet? Who in here doesn't want to save the planet? Who in here doesn't want to see water wasted? Well, all of us, everyone's going to agree with you. Right? So you're saying that statement that you're going to get everybody on board. So state the problem, who's having the problem? Because the person having the problem is your customer. That's the person who's going to pay you either time or money for your thing, whatever it is that you're trying to get them on board with. What is your solution? And by the way, I should mention, all of this stuff might have to be done in 30 seconds or less. There are real live elevator pitches. We've sent students over the last couple years to St. Louis, and they do real live elevator pitch. You get in a pitch, or in a elevator with investors, and in 30 seconds or less, you have to pitch your product. By the time the elevator doors open, you're done. And you might be in there with 2 or 3 different investors. And so it is real life thing where you get in an elevator, and if you can't share all this information in 30 seconds or less, you lose. You don't get any investors. And so it's really an art form to be able to do this. And I like to apply this also to the person who says, you know what, I don't ever want to be an entrepreneur, I don't want to be an inventor, I don't want to do this. Okay, fine. But think about a job interview. You go on a job interview, and the problem, solution, your solution to their problem, that can be the perfect pitch to get you that job or get you a raise. I know about this problem that you're having. I have a solution to your problem. Let me tell you about this solution. What have you done just now in the mind of the customer or the investor or the boss? Create value. You've just created value in yourself because you recognize they have a problem. You're offering a solution to the problem. Now all of a sudden, you're valuable. Right? They're looking at you and go, ooh, I need this person, or I need this person's ideas. So your customer is going to be the person who wants your solution. Okay. How much does it cost, and how are you going to make money? When we do pitch competitions in here in the Launch Lab, and we do them on a fairly regular basis, as you can see from all of this, investors always want to know, how much does this thing cost to make? And how, if I give you $10,000, what am I going to get back? So how much does it cost, and how are you going to make money, which ultimately means how am I going to make money? Mistakes that I've seen, especially with people in real technical fields. So if you're in a real technical, maybe it's a science or an engineering or any kind of technical field when you're doing a lot of research, is researchers tend to love their research and they get in the weeds. They'll start throwing a lot of technical jargon and industry terminology at business people. And I come from a business background, I'm a business person. I don't understand most science technology. I don't understand most engineering technology. So if you were to come to me and say, let me give you my pitch, and I'm going to tell you about all of the variables that are involved with my research and all of the design processes that went into my product, you're going to completely lose me. I don't get that part of it. What I do want to know is, what's it cost you to make, and how am I going to make money? And it's really important you get to that early on. I mentioned in the beginning, know your audience, and if you're pitching to investors, you need to know who those people are. When we do pitch competitions here, if you go into other pitch competitions, usually you'll know who your judges are or your investors are in advance. Everybody watches Shark Tank, right? Anybody ever not seen Shark Tank? Okay, you know what I'm talking about. So you know those investors. The successful pitchers do a little bit of research into those investors and say, hey, Mr. Wonderful, I know this about you, and I know that you like this. Or whoever, Mark Cuban, I know you like sports, and I know you like this. They do a little research into the investors, and they try to speak their language, because if you can connect with somebody, it's going to go a long way towards getting them on your side. You share something, you develop rapport with that person, right? If you start throwing out all kinds of research terminology, and really getting into the weeds with the terms and the research and the variables and all those things, business people, unless they share a common background with you, aren't going to get it. And early on, earlier rather than later, share the money information. Business people love to know the money. They want to know, what does it cost you? How am I going to make money? How can I scale that? How can I make more money? What's going to be my return on my investment? How fast am I going to get it back? Okay, so speak their language. And if you don't know their language, learn their language. And we're here to help. We can help with that. Okay, be clear, concise, and to the point. And get there quickly. For the CEO clubs, and I know there's several of you here, you guys have what, a minute and a half, right? A minute and a half to get all this information across. That's 90 seconds. That goes super, super fast. So get to the point, be very clear in your language, and don't linger about, the story's great, but don't linger on the story too long. Right? Speak their language, get to the point. Why am I here? I need your investment, I need you as a partner, I need you as a customer. What is it? What am I asking for? That's probably the biggest mistake that we see in our pitch competition pitchers is they forget what the ask is. They forget to say, this is what I'm here for, this is what I need. They stand here and they might do a great pitch and they might talk about the problem and they might talk about the solution and they may talk about the customer, but they never get around to the point of, what do you want? Are you asking for money? Are you asking for time? Are you asking for a meeting? Are you asking for a partner? Are you asking me to buy your thing? What do you want? So we want to speak their language and get to the point really, really quickly. If anyone has questions, feel free to throw them out. Yeah?
So for the first 3 steps that you mentioned, tell your story, what's the problem, what's the solution?
Mhm.
Is that something that we would write in the value proposition on the Canvas model? Or is that too much information for that board?
The business canvas is going to be your tool that you're going to extract information for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
4, on number 4, it says, can you go back to number 4?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, how do they make, what is the cost of revenue? How do they make money?
Mhm.
Is this a good time to say, perhaps like if we practice the triple bottom line accounting practice, is this a good place or not place? Because they're not going to make as much money with a TBL as.
So this is going to be really quick. What I would recommend, every product and service is different, so you kind of have to think about it, but I have made 1 unit and it cost me X number of dollars to make this unit. If I were to sell this number of this unit, this is what I would make and your investment would be worth this.
This particular accounting practice would be kind of in the weeds. It's too much
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now that's something that you could save for later, but that's going to eat up a lot of your time, and if you only have a couple minutes, then you say, this is what it costs, this is my return, this is what you're going to make. Bam. Right? And that's a good question because that's another area that people who really understand the numbers and the finance sometimes get caught up in, and then it's great information, but you lose time on convincing that person that they need to invest. Yeah. Okay. So, be yourself. This can be difficult, right? Because when we think about being afraid, everybody does different things when they're nervous and afraid, right? Sometimes we talk too fast, too slow, too loud, too soft, hand gestures. There's all kinds. Everybody does something different. So you want to be yourself, but you also want to be your best self. I would practice 9 million times. Practice so much that you know your pitch in your sleep. You know exactly what you look like when you're pitching. Videotape yourself. Watch yourself in the mirror. Pitch to friends and get feedback. Be yourself, but be your best self so that you're not distracting with, like I do. I talk with my hands. This is really helpful for me because it keeps me from talking with my hands too terribly much because it's distracting. And everybody has their thing that they do when they're nervous or it's just a habit. So when you're pitching, you want to think about what do you look like to the judges? And when we do them here, judges are right here. They're not back there. They're right. You guys have done it. Judges are right here. They're in your face. They might even be closer. They might be here. If we're really crowded, you're backed up to here. They can see everything you're doing. You're not hiding anything. So it's important to practice, have that good body language. If you, anybody ever studied body language before, nonverbal communication? Yeah. What do you know about nonverbal communication?
So when you expand your body, it makes you feel more empowered.
Mm-hmm.
You're more a little close to your chest. Your arms are close.
Mm-hmm.
You're insecure about something. You're uncomfortable.
Good, good. Important stuff to know when you're doing a pitch. What else?
You're always communicating.
You're
There's-
always communicating.
Yeah, there's no never not communicating.
Yeah, absolutely. we read 80% of our communication through nonverbal, right? So I might be saying one thing, but my body is doing something different. You as an investor are gonna question that. Like, can I really trust this person? She's saying something and it all sounds good, but something's twitchy, something's not right. And it could be the fact that, you know, I'm backed up to here and I'm scared to death and I'm standing still, or I'm doing this business and I'm all nervous and afraid. You know, even if you're nervous, you got to appear to be confident, because remember, this is your creation. This is you that you have, that you're presenting to these people, and you want them to buy into it. You got to present it as if, you know, everything about it, you're completely 100% confident. You're not holding anything back. So being yourself, being authentic, and knowing body language. What are some other things that you should or should not do as far as body language goes? Do you think?
Twiddle your thumbs. Or like if you're a girl, like, you know, playing with your hair is like probably.
So, and anyways, my product is really good, and I think you should buy it. No, you're not gonna believe a word I say. What else?
And, like, don't shrug or like put your hand in your pocket. Anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, but, and there's different ways. Like if you're just kind of standing natural with your hand, that might be okay. But if you got a hoodie on and you're all scrunched up, yeah, I don't want that. You shouldn't have a hoodie on anyways. But what else?
It's always good to have eye contact.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, because if you can't look at the person that you're presenting to, and this is something that we do see. That's a good time to point this out. I'm standing here reading my slide. You know, the judges are here, and I'm going, be authentic, be your best brand, and I click onto the next, and I don't even look to what they're doing, because we get so afraid that we think, oh, I'll just read my slides, bless you. I just read my slides, and then I won't have to look at anybody. Okay. That's not good, because that makes people on high alert. Ooh, they can't even look at me. That's a warning signal. So eye contact, the way you hold your body in general, just, you know, are you confident? Do you appear to be confident? What are some other things, just non-verbally? The sound and tone of your voice, the language that you use. Grammar is huge. So having proper grammar, don't use slang, industry slang, any type of slang. What else?
I was gonna say like how you're dressed.
How should you dress for a pitch?
I would say dress accordingly to what your product is. So if you have more of like an outdoorsy product, you're not gonna want to show up in a suit and tie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I get that question a lot, actually. What should I wear? Most people think that they have to wear a suit and tie or a suit for women or whatever. It depends. You're more authentic if you're dressed for your industry. So we had dental hygienists who were pitching in here last year, and they actually traveled. They went to Boston for a pitch, and that was a big question they had. What should we wear? Should we wear dresses or should we wear our scrubs? And we told them, wear your scrubs, because you're gonna look more authentic as a dental hygienist in your scrubs than you do in a dress. And you're probably gonna, I mean, dresses look lovely and very nice, but you're pitching a dental hygiene product. They need to know that you know what you're talking about. You work in the labs, you're authentic, you know what you're doing and saying, you've studied this. But it's not always the case. Sometimes a suit and tie is absolutely appropriate. It just depends on what your product or your service is. So how you dress is important. We had a picture, Chase was 2 years ago, I think. So another picture, some of you might know Chase Bermanona, he graduated, but his product was bow fishing. Right, so he had a company where he would take people out on his boat, and they would do bow fishing at night and shoot bows and arrows. If you don't know what bow fishing is, you're shooting a bow and arrow into water at fish, and then the bow has a rope on it, and then you pull the rope in, and then you have a fish. Right? So that's what that is. I didn't know, I had to learn. And so he wanted to come into the business plan competition 2 years ago, and he wanted to wear his waders, no shirt, and suspenders, because that's where he wears on the boat. And I said, that might be going a little too far into your industry. I get that that's what you wear on the boat, but let's at least put a shirt on. So he ended up wearing a suit. He looked nice. It went fine. But, you know, those are questions. You know, do you want to be more authentic to your judges, but is it going to appear unprofessional if you go too far in one direction. But that's a big thing.
What about, sorry, I'm sick. What about like props and stuff? Like
Mhm.
if you can't dress to like represent your business, what props are like appropriate and what's something that you're just kind of dragging in? It's like just too much room, too loud, or
Yeah.
what's a good? Because
Great
like in our
question.
competition, you're allowed to have props or prototypes.
Uh-huh.
So like, how do you like what's good and what's like don't bring that in?
Yeah, that's a great question because it depends on your product. If you can bring a prop to scale, that's wonderful because the judges really love to see the product to scale, what it's really going to look like. That's not always feasible, right? And so if you can bring a scaled down model of a prototype, that's really helpful. If that's not doable either, any type of visual representation that you can have. You might have a chart or a graph or a photo even. That can be, but it needs to really look professional. It can't just be some kind of hand-drawn pencil thing. Yeah.
What about like if someone, I feel like we can't use PowerPoints.
Okay.
But what if someone has like an app? How do they, and they want to like show it, but they can't use PowerPoint? How would they
Storyboard it.
present it?
Storyboard. Yeah. Do like the storyboard panel presentation, however many you need. Make it professional, have it printed out and everything. But yeah, I've seen people do storyboards with apps before and they work fine. Because they don't even have to have the full app coded. You just show pictures of what each screen would look like. Yep, that'll work for sure. Any other questions about that, with props and things? Just a couple other things about body language, because it is really, really important. Because judges sometimes voted against people, not because they don't like their ideas, but because they don't like them. Or vice versa. Sometimes they don't like the idea, but they love the picture. They just love the personality, the way they present themselves. They'll say, you know what, I don't really care for that product, but I just love this picture. I want to see more from them. I'm going to give them money because I want to see them come back again. And things that lend themselves to that, positive impression on the judges has a lot to do with the nonverbal, right? Looking at them in the eye, speaking clearly. If they appear to have questions, what if a judge is sitting there and looking at it? Because body language is not just about you, it's about them, the people that you're presenting to. Paying attention to their body language. Do they look confused? Do they look like they don't know what you're talking about? Have you lost their attention altogether? Are they staring off into space or looking at their phone? A red flag should go up in your head, like, oh my goodness, I just lost this person. Right? They're playing on their phone or staring into space, or they look very confused or staring at me like they don't understand. It's perfectly fine to stop and say, do you have a question or do you need clarification on something? Because certainly you don't want to get to the end of your 5 minutes or your 3 minutes or your 30 seconds and they had no idea the entire time what you were talking about. And you didn't even bother to look at them to see if they even had an understanding. That's happened too. I've seen that before where the judges are sitting there going, I don't understand. And the pitcher just keeps plowing through, and we get to the end of the 5 minutes, and the judge is going, I have no idea what you just talked about. I didn't know anything that you just said. I didn't understand the terminology. I don't know what your product is, and I don't even know what you want from me. And they're out because I'm not paying attention to them. But if they're leaning in and they're looking at your slides or they're looking at you, then you probably got them. But it's very important to be authentic from your side out, but you also need to pay attention to them. Are they paying attention? Do you have them? And generally you can tell. You can generally tell. If they're smiling at you, I've seen judges a lot of times where they're just smiling at you the whole time. They might not even know what you're talking about. They just like it. They're just happy that you're talking. So pay attention to them, and that comes through practice too. Okay, energetic, passionate, confident. Show your excitement. And this isn't just through body language, but it's your voice and it's your tone of voice. And this comes through practice because trust me, once you go through your pitch 10 or 20 times or more, because that's usually what we do here when we're preparing for competitions, we do pitch over and over and over and over and over. And by the time you do it 10 or 20 times, the last thing you want to do is do your pitch again. You're just, I'm exhausted. I don't want to do this anymore. So it's easy to lose your passion, your confidence, and your excitement. I call it showtime. You've got 5 minutes. It's showtime. Just Just get up there and act like you don't want to be anywhere else. This is the place. Even if you never want to do this pitch again. Because it's important. This could be the pitch that gets you the funding, or gets you the investor, or gets you whatever it is that you need. And it could be, you've done it 10 times, on the 11th time, that was the time you needed it to be great, and you were too tired. And so, get that energy, passion, confidence, because if you love what you're talking about, chances are the people sitting in those chairs are gonna love it too. Because your enthusiasm's gonna spread. And so be energetic, passionate, confident, show your excitement. And the reason I have all these tips up here is these are things I've seen people do that's made a huge difference. It's, there are people who, and you might be a person who gets really, really nervous, and when you're nervous speaking, you tend to shut down. And so I'm going to tell you about the problem and my solution for the problem, and so I think you'll like it, and you can make a lot of money, and right? Could you imagine 5 minutes of that? So be energetic, passionate, confident, show your excitement. You have 30 seconds to 5 minutes. Leave them wanting more. Don't get in the weeds. I've already said don't get in the weeds, but don't get in the weeds up front because that's going to kill your time. But leave them wanting more. Right? Give them just enough information to hook them, to where they can't wait till after the competition to ask you questions. So it is so exciting, it is so innovative, it is so problem solving, it is the next greatest thing that after the competition's over, those judges or investors or customers or whoever they are, they can't wait to ask you questions. They want to know more about your product. So you don't want to tell them everything there is to know right in the, however much time you have. Leave them wanting more. Make it sound so exciting, they can't wait to hand you money. They want to write you a check on the spot. All right, I went in. This is great. I can't wait. Tell me more about it. One caveat to this, and for those of you in my class this morning, you've heard this, but one caveat is if you have intellectual property, like you have a patent, you have a trademark, you have anything that is proprietary, don't share it in your pitch. Right? So make note of that. Don't share any proprietary information in your pitch unless you have your patent filed already. And that's why I'm always real careful when I talk about past students' work. I make sure that they already have their intellectual property filed before I talk about it, because we're on a non-disclosure, all of us that work in here are on a non-disclosure agreement, so we don't talk about people's work until it's protected and we have their permission. Reason being, without getting into too much legalities around it, if you have an invention, new product, service, what have you, you make a public disclosure about it before you have filed for protection. Public disclosure opens you up to anybody who hears your idea now can take it and run with it. It doesn't happen very often. I don't like to scare people by saying that, but it can happen. So if I stand up here and I have an invention for a new product and I tell you all the little details about how it's built, how it's put together, how the design, how it works, everything, and you say, that sounds like a really good idea. I think I'll go make that one on my own. I don't need you. I'll just go do it on myself. You can't stop them because you've made a public disclosure. So what we do is, I always tell people when you're doing your pitch, and if you have proprietary information, don't share all of it. You can talk about it, you can talk about the problem, your solution. You just don't need to get into the details about how the product is designed, how it operates, how it works, all that stuff. But when we're here in the launch lab, everybody signs a confidentiality agreement, we're protected. But when you go out to other pitches outside of here, we can't control that. So they may or may not have confidentiality agreements. The ones that we send students to, St. Louis doesn't have them, Boston didn't have them, they don't have confidentiality agreements. So what we tell students is be careful. You can talk about your product, just don't give them all the details so they can say, I'm just gonna go make this on my own. Just be aware. have judges, and I'm talking about listening to verbal, but also listening to what their body language is telling you. So we talked about the body language side of things, pay attention. Pay attention to your judges, make sure you can read them, but also listen to what they have to say. If a judge says to you, you might have a couple minutes at the end for Q&A. If the judge or an investor or whoever you're presenting to has questions, let them ask the questions. Please, I beg of you, don't get defensive. One of my standard sayings, and probably everyone has heard me say this before, I know you don't want to be told your baby's ugly. We love our babies, and we don't want to be told that it's not working, or it's not ugly, or it's not exactly doing what you say it should do. But it's positive feedback. And the people who are going to be, you're asking to be investors or partners or customers, are going to give you valuable feedback. It might not be presented in the best way, and you might feel defensive, but practice not being defensive. So if you present and you think, oh man, that was the best pitch I ever gave, I was right on point, I told them everything they needed to know, it's awesome, and they say, well, you know what, I don't know, I have already seen a product like this on the market, and you'll hear that, investors, I've already seen this already exists, how is yours different? You'll get that question a lot, how is yours different, I've already seen this, or I don't get it, I don't like it, I don't understand it, I'm not interested. Right? And that can be heartbreaking. So thank you, I appreciate your feedback. That's the only response you really need to have for that. Thank you, I appreciate the feedback. If they ask you a question and you don't know the answer to it, it's fine to say that. You know what, that's a really great question, I'm going to look into that. That will require further research on my part. That's fine. The last thing we want to do, and again, I say this because I've seen it before, is no, I've already researched the market, and no, there isn't anybody else doing this. Or yeah, it works fine. I don't know. You just haven't seen it. You don't know. Right? Do you want to partner with someone like that? No. And neither does your investor. Okay. A little prima donna there. I don't think I want to be partners with that person. So take it for what it's worth. Yeah, it's great feedback. I'll look into it. I'm still prototyping. I'm still researching. I think, thank you very much for the feedback. It's very helpful. All of those responses are great. And if you want to curse them out when you walk out of the room, that's fine. But you just keep that to yourself. One other thing about listening. When your 5 minutes or whatever time is up, it is up. What we do timing in here. So if we tell you it's 3 minutes, you're done. Buzzer goes off, stop talking. Same thing with the business plan competition, same thing with most pitches you go to. If you guys have a minute and a half at yours, I'm assuming they're gonna time you. Yeah? Yes? Are they timing you?
Yeah, we're timing you a minute, 30 seconds. Once it's done, you're done.
You're done. Yeah, so they cut you off. So you don't keep talking. The buzzer goes off or someone tells you to stop. You don't say, okay, I just have a couple more points. No, you're done. There is no couple more points. And that's really disrespectful for the people in the room and the people you're competing against and the judge's time. So time is up, and it's time to listen to what they have to say. Okay. Talked about body language, but read their expressions too. Remember, eye contact, leaning in, fidgeting, boredom, excitement. All of that are things to look for in your judges. So pay attention to what they're telling you non-verbally. Okay, top 3 points. Problem, solution, customer. I would also add in here how you're gonna make money. That would be your top 4, okay? What is the problem? What is your solution? Who is your customer? If you can hit these things in if it's a 30-second, then that's good. Another question they'll probably ask you is, how many customers are there? Right? So I know my problem, I know my solution, I know my customer. Okay, how many of them are out there? You just have one customer and then we're done? It might be, because if you're selling if it's a B2B and you're selling to Amazon, all right, great, I got a customer, it's Amazon, I'm good to go. But probably not. Probably you're gonna need to identify more than one customer, so how many are out there? Right, yeah?
we should list the specific names of the customers or just the personas?
Just the personas.
Okay.
Yep. Demographic information, and I usually say if you have time, you don't always in like a 30-second one, but if you have 5 minutes, you might have time to actually create a persona and put it up there. You know, this is Tim, and Tim does this, and there are, you know, a million Tims out there. That's nice if you have time for it. Yeah, for sure. And get to the point. Please practice, and give yourself enough time to practice. Don't try to practice an hour before your presentation, or even a day before. And practice to people who will give you honest feedback. You know, friends and family are great, but most friends and family, if I went and did the most horrible presentation to my mother, she would think it was the best thing in the world. Right? Friends and family are great, but generally they're not going to be honest with you. They're going to tell you how wonderful you are. And that's great for your ego, but it's always not the best thing to do in front of judges. And so find some people who will give you honest feedback, will give you pointers, practice again, come back and do it again, so that you can just get yourself better. Because the person who tells you you're great all the time isn't really going to be helpful. That's nice. You know, parents and friends are wonderful, but it's not going to make you a better pitcher. And so, and that's why we're here in the Launch Lab. We're here to help you get better. We've got a whole staff of people who will sit and watch your pitch and give you honest feedback. Right? They will tell you if you're speaking too fast, too slow, I can't understand you, I didn't understand the terminology, I don't understand your product, or this was the best pitch I ever saw in my life. I'll tell you that too. Okay, but the practice part is really important. Videotape yourself if you can. Watch yourself in the mirror. I know it seems odd and awkward at first, but it'll get better the more you do it. Because you'll be able to notice these things about yourself. Right? None of us see ourselves the way other people see us. So you might think that you're the best pitcher in the world, and then you watch yourself in the mirror or on videotape. Usually, almost every single time I video someone pitching and I show it back to them, they're horrified. And it's never that bad. But they always say, oh my God, I didn't know I looked like that, or I didn't know I sounded like that, or I didn't know whatever. And they're horrified because we're all our worst critics. But it's never that bad, but at least it's honest. You know, you can at least say, oh gee, I really need to speak slower or softer or faster, or I need to stop fidgeting, or whatever your thing is. And we all have our thing. You can listen to voice control. You can listen to clarity. You can tell if you're speaking too fast and people can't hear you. You can tell your excitement level. All of the things you can just watch, and of course you want to be confident. And if you know that public speaking is your worst fear, as it is for most people, you're gonna have to work on the confidence factor. Think about, you know, what's the worst thing that could happen? That's what I usually tell people with public speaking. What's the worst thing that could happen? I don't know what I could fall down, pass out. People do it all the time. It's okay. Get back up again. Or you come back. It's okay. All right. So those are my 11, I guess, pointers. What kind of questions do you guys have?
What was the
Yes.
10th?
Body language for your judges. Yep. And then make your 3 points and then practice. Okay. So, yes ma'am.
Question. Do you recommend that they thank the audience at the end and say thank you for your time, appreciate?
Yes. Yeah. Good question. Couple of things that you should end with your pitch. First of all, yes, they need to know that it's over. That happens. We've seen that before too. Someone will finish their pitch and they'll just go, and nobody knows if it's over. Are we done? Because if you finish before your time, you know, you might still have a couple seconds left, but you don't know what to do with yourself. So yes, thank you for your time. If you want to reiterate anything at the end, such as, you know, we are asking for $10,000 investment, this is what it will go for, this is the return that you'll get on your investment, or something like that, thank you for your time. So if you have a couple seconds at the end, it's not bad to reiterate your most important point. What is it that you're asking for? Thank you for your time. Are there questions? That way they know it's over, and now you're entertaining questions from the judges. If you're on an elevator, how do you end the conversation in an elevator? You're not gonna say, thank you for your time. Are there any questions? What would you say? You've got an elevator ride with somebody. You've got a 30-second pitch. How do you end it? What do you think? Is that what you? How do you end it?
Yeah, we need to give them kind of contact information. Say, nice to meet you. Hopefully you can talk some more.
Contact information. Give them yours or get theirs.
I guess get theirs would be better.
Yeah, get theirs.
Yeah.
Because then at least you can follow up. You're not going to sit by the phone waiting for them to follow up. Yep. What were you going to say? The same thing?
Same thing,
Get their information, right? Or it depends on who the person is. Because if it's somebody that you can contact directly, then you can get their information or whatever. But it might be somewhere you need to go through a couple of levels of people to get a meeting with that person. So maybe it's, do you have a name of a person in your organization that I can contact to have a follow-up meeting? So that way they give you a name of a person, you know who to contact, and you can have a follow-up meeting. But the last thing you want to do, if you've got a face-to-face with somebody on a short period of time, like that 30 seconds, don't leave it to where there's no follow-up at the end. Because you just wasted that huge opportunity. I just spent 30 seconds in an elevator with this investor that I've been dying to talk to, and I said, thank you for your time, and I walked away. And I just wasted that, you know. So make that follow-up, whatever that follow-up should be. It needs to be something to where you have their information. Maybe they don't give it to you, but you could at least say, do you mind if I follow up with you in a week or two, and we can have an appointment and I can share more of this? Because remember, you want to leave them wanting more. So do you have time in the next week or two that I can come and follow up and share more information with you? That way, at least you have that connection, and you're not just hanging it out there and it's over.
Is it good if we ask them if we can have a meeting with them?
Absolutely. Yep. Can we schedule a meeting? And if you have an extra minute, that maybe you schedule it while you're standing there. You know, that's a tricky one, because usually they'll say, I don't have time, you know, contact my assistant or something like that. Okay, what's your assistant's name? I'll contact that person. So as long as you got, you know, keep that lifeline open. Other questions?
If you have a working prototype, how do we integrate that in our presentation?
Great question. So if you're on an elevator, probably you won't have it, right? If it's in real life. But if you're doing a pitch, right? You bring it with you, introduce it right off the bat. You know, my name is so-and-so, my story is this, I recognize the problem in society, this is my solution, and then show them how it works. And then you might even give it to them and let them play with it. You know, they always love to touch stuff. I talk about judges as if they're like this different group of people, but they do love to touch stuff. So if you have a prototype and you can hand it to them and they can kind of play with it and while you're speaking, that's great. Yeah, and if you're not allowed to have a visual, you know, like a PowerPoint or something, then have something that they can look at. That, any type of visual representation makes a big difference. Yeah. What else? Other questions?
What about something like a pamphlet or something like that? And you just hand that to the judges, and like, is that a distraction? Like they're reading it as you're talking, or do you give it at the end and be like, here's more information? Like, thank you for your time.
That's a good question. It depends. If you're going to be referring to it, give it to them up front, because you don't want to say, you know, have it sitting up here and you're talking about, and in my pamphlet I have this, and in my visual I have this, and they're sitting there, well, where is it? If you're going to refer to it, I'd give it to them up front. If you're not going to refer to it in your pitch, you could leave it. It could be a leave behind and just say, I'll leave this with you if you have further questions. My contact information is there. That way they have it. But if you're going to refer to it, you know, I have this graph, but my graph's up here and they can't see it, you know? So you want to make sure that they have it in front of them. Yeah, for sure.
Like kind of add to that, like would it be worth it to have like some sort of outline of your presentation to give them so they can
I wouldn't.
see what your points are? That,
No, I wouldn't. Now, if you want to give it to them after, if they want it, you wanna have a referral, you know, to them. But if you give them your slides and you give them like written information, they're gonna sit there and read instead of listen to what you say.
Well, I was thinking like, just like real, you know, key points, you know, hit, you know, like what you want them for sure to know on this, you know, brief, you know, outline or whatever.
You could use it, you could do a leave behind. You could
Yeah.
leave them with that. Yep.
Right.
Important points. Here's, you know, a summary of my presentation for your referral, and then we can have a follow-up. The problem with that, when you have them something to read, unless you're referring to it, then they're gonna be sitting there looking at that, and they're not gonna be looking at you. And you want them looking at you, right? Not looking at a piece of paper. Because you'll lose them that way. They're not gonna hear half of what you say. I mean, we all do it, you know. When you're looking at your phone, you're not hearing what the person's saying. Not as much anyways. Other questions? Slides. Let's talk about slides. And I know not everybody's gonna be using PowerPoint in your presentations, but at some point you will, if you haven't already. We can use PowerPoint slides in here, but not, the CEO one doesn't let you use PowerPoint slides, so know the rules before you go. Make sure you know the rules of your competition. Slides, and I didn't put this in here, but this is super important. Please, please, please don't bombard people with charts and graphs and all kinds of words and write a book about your pitch on your slide. I beg of you. They're not gonna look at it. They're not gonna read it. It's gonna be a distraction to the point of anger. Right? So if you have slides, put pictures up there. Maybe a couple of words and a picture and tell your story. If you've got financials, if you need to show financials, like a pie chart or a graph or something, put it at the end of your slide deck. If they ask you a question about, I need to know more about your financial information, bingo, you pull that up. I got it. But please don't include it in your presentation. There's nothing worse than trying to listen to someone's presentation and trying to see the 5-point font that they have on their screen in tiny little graphs, right? It's awful, it's worse. Please don't do that to your judges or your investors. That's something you can save for a follow-up. Use pictures. If you want to use a chart, do like a nice pretty pie chart, but please don't bombard them with a ton of information on your slide. Because A, it angers them, and B, you're gonna end up standing here doing this and reading it rather than talking, right? Judges aren't interested in your slides. They're interested in you. So you want their 100% attention, not sitting there with a magnifying glass trying to decipher your bar charts. Right? So please don't do that, but have it ready. So if you've got, 10 slides or less, you shouldn't even have 10, probably, 4 or 5 slides should be enough. Picture, couple words, maybe a logo, if you have a logo, something that tells your story, great. Financials, keep them, maybe those are slides 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 at the end. It's not part of your presentation, but an investor says, I need to know more about your financials. Break down your costs, right? That's when you get into the accounting specifics. You've got a judge who says, I need to know more about your numbers. I'm an accountant, I'm a numbers person, I want to see it. And you're like, bingo, I got it. Here's a breakdown of all of my costs, my revenue structure, the whole works. But that's for after. So please include it, but don't show it.
You mentioned one of the comments that a judge might say is, I've seen this on the market, your other competitors are already there. Is that something you would diffuse up front in one of your slides? Say, I know that there's other people in the market, these are these people.
Absolutely.
Or is that a backup slide?
If you know that there are other products similar to yours, you could, in your solution, that these are the existing solutions, but here's how mine's better. Right? And that way you've diffused it and they're not gonna try to trip you up at the end. Or no, they won't try to trip you up. So in your solution slide, where you say, this is the problem, this is my solution. I know there are other solutions, but mine's better and this is how it's better. That shows you've done your research too. Yeah, there's all kinds of different ways to go about structuring your pitch, and you want to make it that it's reflective of you and your personality. So you can mix this up however you want, but these are generally the things that an investor or a customer is going to want to see, because you're addressing them, their problem, their issue, rather than making it about you. Okay. And everybody knows this. We all know this intuitively, but sometimes we forget. Right? You know intuitively what's the favorite word that we all love to use? What's the word that we all use more than any other word in the human language? I and me. I and me. We love to talk about ourselves, and so does everybody else. So if you can say, this is the solution to your problem, I'm going to help you with this problem, make it about them, now all of a sudden they're interested. But if I'm standing here going, let me tell you about me. Me, I'm so great, I made this, I do this, I'm making tons of money. No one cares. Yeah.
Is there any proportion for each step? I mean, for telling the story, for talking about the problem, solution, cost and revenue, is there any proportion? I mean, how much time we should talk about ourselves, how much time we should...
Oh, yeah, well, it depends on how much time you have, right? So if you've got 30 seconds, you're gonna wanna condense everything. If you've got 5 minutes, it depends on how interesting your story is. If you can come up with a really cool story, you might linger on that a little bit longer, because that's gonna be your hook. That's gonna get their attention. And now they're gonna be sitting there going, okay, how's the story gonna end? How are they gonna solve my problem with this story? That might be a really cool way to get people's attention. If your story's kind of short, that's okay. Get into the problem and solution a little bit faster. We all tell stories differently. If you're not really comfortable telling your story, because your product might be something that maybe it's not that comfortable to talk about. Several years ago, again in the businessman competition, you were there for the bull semen one, weren't you?
Yeah. On Target, is that what On Target was up there?
Is that what it was called? Yeah, something. You might have a product that's not real comfortable to talk about. The girl and she was in the semifinals, wasn't she?
I thought she made it to the final.
Did she make it to the final? She could have. She was really good. Several years ago in the businessman competition, one of the girls, she was an ag student and she worked on a bull farm. And she worked with artificial insemination for bulls. And that product for artificial insemination had not been redone since like 1938, wasn't it? It was like super old. She redid the technology. She invented a new tool and method for artificial insemination for bulls. Well, when you read the bio or the short descriptor of what she was pitching, we were all sitting there going, oh no, how is she gonna pitch this? This is gonna be super awkward and uncomfortable, and we're all gonna be, and she stood up, first word she said, bull semen. Okay, I said it, and then she went about it, and it was out, and it was over, and everything, the tension, you could just feel the tension in the room just come down. Oh, thank God she just said it. You know, because she wasn't going to tell a big, long story to build up to that one. We were all like, oh no. But it worked, because she just said it, she got it out, and then everybody was really interested. Okay, now good, tell us about your technology, tell us about your product, the solution, everything. That one stands out in my mind forever, because she did a really good job. So it wasn't going to be a long story, because nobody really wanted to hear the long, detailed story of that, but they did want to know about our product. Other questions? Okay, well, if you have specific questions, I'll be here for a little while. If you haven't had a chance to eat some pizza, please do that. If you need to schedule times to come in and pitch, we can do that tonight too. Yes, ma'am?
See me for that.
See Sonia for that. If you need to schedule times to come in and practice pitching, Sonia will get you on our calendar. I would say schedule a couple different times, so that you don't come in here one time and then you don't get to come back a second time to practice, because you want to have a couple of different times so that you can make sure that you incorporate the feedback that you get. All right, very good. Have a lovely evening. Like I said, have some pizza.